Hello. It looks like we're live. All right. Let's see. Attendees.
How do we know if we're live?
Well, it told us we're live. It says we're on air. Hey guys, how you doing out there?
Hi.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be with us. Who's out there? I've got the chat box up. So if you want to tell us who you are,
Can you see that? It's miles away.
where you are, what it's like outside, what your furry friends are doing. Rescue Ranch reporting in. Wairika. Hi, Rescue Ranch. Hi, Janice.
Oh, here they come.
Hi,
Good Lord.
Becky. Yeah, it looks like we've got
Connecticut.
quite a number of people with us today. 200. Whew. Hi, George, Marge,
God, I'm scared.
Sylvia.
This is the first time we've done this,
Oh, man.
Jamie.
Yeah, so
This is
just so
gonna
you
be
guys
funny.
know, this is we're trying something new here today. This webinar is whoo, man, look at them coming. This webinar, we haven't tried anything exactly like this, so this is kind of an early bird access type of thing. So it might be a little rough around the edges. We hope you guys will bear with us and forgive us our faults.
No, we'll be superb.
Perfect as always. Hi from Carmichael, Maui. Oh, Kristen, lucky you. El Cerrito.
Oh,
Ooh.
was there an Ian there? I'm here. Or is that Jan? I can't see. There's no point in trying.
Yeah, I
to
don't
look at
think
the screen.
you should look at
No,
at
sorry.
that. So we're gonna wait a
busy.
minute or two, let everyone filter into the room today. You know, everyone get their last trip to the bathroom in. I just took mine. You guys might want to think about that, and then we'll get started in a moment. How are you doing today, Dad?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Did lots of work last night. A lot of work this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Shuttling house guests around though, so if you hear any bangs and crashes, we got house guests and a couple of extra dogs here.
House guest dog.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good to have some
And
something
we-
to blame
Yeah.
other noises on.
and well, poor Wilbur, he has terrible separation anxiety, so I hope his owners don't leave him too long, or else
Mhm.
this will be real-time training.
That would be cool. One of these days we'll have to do one of those.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. What do you say?
Yep, I'm gung-ho. I'm gung-ho.
All right, guys. Hi. My name is Jamie Dunbar, and this is my father, Dr. Ian Dunbar. And what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about dog training, behavior. What else is new?
Perhaps simple science dog training?
Certainly science-based, fun and games, lure reward, dog-friendly, dog training. And don't be all scared about the science bit. It just means we keep records of what we do. Our techniques are always quick and easy and amazingly effective.
Mhm. Right. I think it's science-based, but it's fun. That's always been
Yeah, simple
something
numbers.
we're all about.
Like, did your dog sit? Yes or no? That's what I mean by science.
So why are we talking about this today?
Well, I mean, aside from the obvious that it's fun and training opens up, communication channels and just enriches the relationship, training also saves lives.
How so?
Well, the behavior and temperament problems are the number one reason why people surrender dogs to shelters, and they have to pay, the lot of life. And I just want to teach people that, let's stop this happening. The dog should be a pleasure to live with. So it's something that enriches your life, rather than being a pain, rather than you having, lots of problems with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm guessing some of you guys listening probably have some issues with your dogs, and so you can probably understand how this can be an issue that can get out of control, and how eventually some dogs end up getting surrendered to shelters. Well, who is this webinar for? I'm glad I've got these notes there nice and big.
Well, I would say, Jamie, anybody who has a dog or is thinking of getting one, that the information is always the same, whether we present it to dog owners or professionals. As you know, I don't like using big, long words. I like to use terms which are very simple so we can just get ahead and start training the dog. And we're actually going to do that today. We're going to give you some exercises to do right while you're listening to the webinar or right when it's finished.
So you think that, say, Lisa in Santa Fe could do this with her dog?
Of course she could.
What about Sue Ann from BC, Canada?
Sue Ann's there. Woo! Oh, good Lord.
Well, I'm not 100% sure it's that Sue Ann. We'll see. So these methods, these methods don't require any special experience or skills?
No. No, aside from having a happy heart and your voice and some kibble to use as, treats in training, a tennis ball, a tug toy, that's it. No special equipment.
Okay. So what is the goal at the end of today? What are we hoping that's going to happen with these people?
Well, I hope that people are actually going to try out the exercises that we suggest, so they prove to themselves that what I say is true, that the training is quick and easy and effective. Also, of course, this is a sales webinar, so we will be presenting them a very attractive deal at the end of our spiel.
More on that later.
That is true.
Okay, so specifically, in achieving these goals, you mentioned some exercises. What specifically are we going to do to get us there?
Well, you will, teach them how to teach their dog to come when called, to settle down happily, calmly, quietly when left at home alone, to sit, not to be reactive around other dogs.
So we've got 3 exercises for people.
Actually going to give 4, but
yeah,
3.
Oh, no.
3. Oh, good Lord. High tech. We're going to change it. Let me type that in to change the,
Can't we consolidate one of them? We can call it 3.
We could, whatever.
And then what about this up here?
If you like to say 3 is fine. But we're going to do 4. Yeah.
What about the myths?
The myths. Well, we're going to.
You don't need to tell them what they are.
We're going to chat about 3 big myths in dog training that essentially stop people training. They don't even start because they believe these myths.
But not for long. All right, what do we got next on our big board? All right, big question. Why should people listen to you? I've been asking myself that for...
Why is a difficult question. The point is, many of them are listening to me now, but to convince anyone who doesn't know me, I professionally, I've been involved in dog behavior and training for nearly 50 years now, which is quite considerable. I went to the Royal Veterinary College in London, and then I came to California to get a PhD, dog behavior and training. And then subsequently, of course, we started serious puppy training. So we've got about... well over 110,000 puppies under our belt, so a bit of experience. But I think really way before all of that, I grew up on a farm, and we trained all the animals on the farm. And, not just like teaching them to come when called, but classical conditioning. I mean, for my grandfather who left school when he was 12, it was amazing that the stuff he did. And later I said, why are you doing this, Gramp? And he said, so the calves, when they grow up like children, and all the animals were classically conditioned. And,
the cows. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, all animals are potentially dangerous. They're not necessarily if they're nasty, if they just tread on you. I mean, it hurts. But, I thought, look, if I as a kid could get 80 cows or 200 chickens to come when called, I don't really think we're going to have much of a problem with just one dog. And so that's why I think the nitty-gritty of good, practical, how-to information that as you do it, you prove to yourself that it works.
And because, we've been training dogs for a few decades now. How many dogs do you think have gone through Sirius over the years?
Oh, I say it's over 110,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And
one quick note, I just wanted to address. Scott had a question. He pointed out that a lot of times we in the material that we provide, we really focus on early puppyhood socialization because it's so important. And some owners, I think, who have dogs that are older and missed out on that window can be discouraged. And I feel like that's kind of a big part of what we're trying to do with this course, is try something new and really meet people where you're at, meet people who already have older dogs and may have missed that socialization window. And we're going to show you, kind of the rehabilitation techniques, the solutions for the problems that you're developing.
Well, the socialization is always important. It doesn't stop. The need for it doesn't stop. It's just that it's easier and more effective to do it in puppyhood.
But if you've missed that,
you start the day you get your dog, or if you have a dog now at home, you start today. That we sink into this thing where we don't walk the dog as much, we don't have as many people coming to the house. It's time to have parties at home, so your dog gets hand fed and plays with and is trained by a bunch of people, handled by them.
Yeah.
But essentially, we are looking today at more owners of adult dogs that have certain, predictable problems.
So don't be discouraged.
Which could have been preventable, however. But here today we're looking at resolution.
So don't be discouraged, Scott. We will be providing information that's going to help you and anyone else in that same boat. All right. So moving along, how did you get started in the world of dog training? Not as a zygote.
Is there life before a zygote? That's a good question. I've always been training dogs. When I grew up on the farm, I spent my days with 3 dogs wandering the fields on my own. It was glorious. But I guess,
how did you get started helping others?
I started lecturing to dog clubs and what have you in the very early 70s and enjoyed it a lot more than academic lecturing because they asked interesting questions, as opposed to, is this on the midterm? So for me, it was a lot more fulfilling than academic seminars. But then I got a dog and tried to get him into training, and no one would take him till he was 6 months to a year old.
That seems...
And I thought, this is insane. And so I went to look at some classes, and there was just no rhyme or reason to what they were doing. It's like they hadn't even considered how animals learn. And so it took forever. People would be in classes for like 2 years, still training a simple recall. And they did it all. And the reason was it took so long. They did the training on leash. So it turned it into a 2-step process. First, you got to train the dog on leash. Now you got to get reliability off leash. So it was all, really silly. And so I had an epiphany.
Oh, those are good.
When your mother,
yes,
formerly my wife, had an intervention and asked me, how exactly are you going to bring money into this relationship?
Good
I
question.
thought, and I thought, I know, I'm going to start a puppy school. And I'm going to train puppies starting at 3 months. Now we take them earlier, teach it off leash, science-based lure reward methods, and with a really comprehensive syllabus. So not just restricted to learning on-leash obedience drills, but the whole thing of behavior, temperament, and training problems, and primarily the prevention of them. So I set it up, and it was just an overnight success. The vets and breeders absolutely loved it, as did the owners, as did the puppies, and as did myself.
That's a win-win.
Win-win-win-win. It was all right.
I
could not believe. I got a lot of press coverage at the time, and they would say, well, do you enjoy what you do, your job? And I went, a job? I'm playing with puppies. It was just so fantastic.
All right. So how does this help, Fiona and Jane and Kelly at home?
Well, the point is we designed the classes to be for families to train their puppies and then adult dogs.
But so these people can't come to our classes necessarily.
At home.
Oh.
You see, the training, you don't train a dog in a dog class. That's where you go so a trainer can check there's no incipient signs of aggression building up, or you're not having, problems, and to set you on the right track. But you train your dog at home, just like the little exercises that we will give them today, the 3 exercises that we will go through.
Okay, so they can try these techniques at home. They don't need special skills, no special equipment. They can get training today?
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
Well, that's pretty exciting. I hope you guys are excited. Are you guys excited? You want to hear about the 3 myths and the 3 exercises? Should we get onto it?
Of course we will, Jamie. They're sitting here waiting for us.
This is called a dramatic pause.
Oh, good Lord. Well, then I'll have a sip of coffee.
All right.
So myth number 1.
Myth number 1
is that dog training doesn't work. It's boring or just downright unpleasant.
Okay, so if myth 1 is that dog training doesn't work or it's unpleasant, that must mean that dog training does work and it's pleasant.
Well, not necessarily so.
Oh.
A lot of dog training actually doesn't work.
Oh.
People are doing stuff to dogs and what have you. But when you look at it, they still keep doing it. The dog doesn't learn. I mean, classic example here would be, say, people who punish the dog. It's jerking on leash using a shock collar. Well, they keep doing it, which means what? Well, the punishment didn't work.
I guess if it worked, they would get to stop eventually.
It would reduce the frequency of the behavior and eventually eliminate it, and therefore it's not a punishment. So when you train a dog, I think even if you're just using food rewards, let alone using anything nasty, you must check that what you're doing works. And this is where we're very different, that we keep score of, what the dog is doing, what he's learning, how the behavior is improving. So not only can we prove to the owner, or the owner can learn very quickly, oh, this is working, but they know how quickly it's working. So
some dog training does work.
Dog training can work when you use the right techniques which are quick and easy.
Wait a second, but what about the question of whether it's pleasant or not?
As I say, it's quick and easy, effective, obviously, and enjoyable. I mean, I just don't see the point of doing anything like this. What are you drawing?
I keep knocking this with my foot.
It's a bone. We don't. Oh, Jamie and his bone. He can't give a webinar without a bone to chew on. I'm taking this away from you now,
bone.
No, the bone goes there. But it goes without saying it should be enjoyable. I mean, we could make this webinar incredibly boring, and especially because it's our first time doing anything that is strictly scripted. This is not us, but we're trying our best to make it enjoyable for you at home, so you can say, well, that was fun seeing Ian and Jamie again.
So the reality is good dog training is effective
and fun
and enjoyable.
Yeah,
but there is some bad dog training out there that is neither.
I wouldn't say, there's some horrible dog training out
ineffective.
There. But there's also a lot of well-meant, reward-based dog training out there that is really not very effective in the sense that it will take you weeks and months, long time and many trials to criterion. And so that's why I think it's really important to keep proving to the owner it's getting better. So, for example, week 1 in class, I'll line the dogs up, say, right, have them all sit, stay, and I film it. I go home, and then from my iPhone, I time it, and I put it up on the wall. A ladder. Who had the longest sit, stay? Say 5 seconds, week 1 of puppy class. I make them look at this every week, because we do this every week, and now the sit, stays are up to 1 minute, 2 minutes, and I say, a lot better than week 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, look, my classes are pretty good because not only do you learn, but you learn quickly and you're having a good time doing it.
So I feel like there's a lot of people out there who, they're using training method, or they're maybe even training their dog to do the opposite of what they want. I feel like, have you ever encountered that? Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, there are sometimes, and I think the biggest instance, I actually wrote an article on this, called How to Train Your Dog Not to Come When Called. Because I saw this lady in a park. Everything she did was just not wrong. It was so wrong. It was 180 degrees out of her, absolute opposite of what she should be doing. So I wrote this joke article, but I'll never do that again, because I got a letter and someone says, "Dear Dr. Dunbar, I like your article in the American Kennel Club Gazette, but this last one, I tried it and it didn't work." And I thought, was he actually trying to train his dog not to come when called? Or did he misunderstand it and thought this was a way to train? And he wouldn't suspect anything was wrong, because back then the training methods were pretty adversarial and nasty. Anyway, so anyway, what they do is, just from putting the leash on, they get a leash out. I know owners that say, "Shall we take the dog for a WALK?" Then the dog goes ballistic even when they spell the word out. Now, then what do? They put the leash on. You know, that's reinforcing that banana-like behavior. Then out the door they go, down the street with the dog pulling off to the dog park. Then they let it off leash, which has to be the biggest reward in urban dogdom or suburban dogdom or countryside dogdom.
They've just rewarded crazy behavior.
Then it gets worse. They ignore the dog when he's having a good time, thereby setting up a huge distraction of smells and other dogs. You know, the dogs say, "Well, this is a lot of fun." Then they wait until their dog's really distracted, say sniffing another dog's butt, and they say, "Rover, come here." Not even in a nice voice. So, of course, the dog doesn't come. So then what they do is they say, "Rover, come here." They shout. And it's just not conducive to getting...
I don't think I'll be coming.
A good recall, you know. So it really is. And sometimes, you know, when I'm teaching a class or a workshop, I just look at the owners, I lean back and I smile and I think, how wrong could this be? But, you know, I smile and then we get them through it and say, you know, it'd be much better if you said thank you when the dog came when called.
That makes sense. Okay, so how can people at home teach their dog to come when called? What is the correct way?
Well, I mean, sort of explain it with a story that one of the most difficult dogs that I've ever trained in my life was this Doberman in Japan. And I came to the house, he'd destroyed it. I mean, a really fancy apartment and large, and he chewed everything. So, you know, stuffing Kongs with food solved that problem. He laid down nicely.
I hope you guys know about that, right?
Well, we'll go through it a bit more in myth number 2. So the filming ended early. They said, "Well, right, let's convene tomorrow."
That was too easy.
Take the dog to the dog park. Yeah. So I turn up to the dog park and it's 6 in the morning. Oh my God, it was awful. And there's Dobermans there. And I said, and I thought little Japanese dog park, you know, the size of my living room. No, this thing was several acres. It was huge. And we got the Doberman. I said, "Well, how many times have you been to the park?" And they said, "Never." I said, "Well, what other parks have you taken him to?" He said, "Oh, he's never been off leash." So I took one look at this dog and I said, "Look, here's how it's going to go. We're going to let him off leash and I'm going to get a cup of coffee." Because training cannot begin for half an hour. And this is the secret.
With this dog that's never been off leash.
And we let him off leash and off he went. And he was going through the park like this, not even sniffing other dogs. He was like, "I'm free, I'm free." And he was bounding like Bambi.
Quite nice.
And just, you know. So I went and got a cup of coffee. Then I came back, said, "Right, let's start to train." I said, "Now, the first bit's a bit tricky because I don't know the dog. He doesn't know me. So you two stand still. You do not make a grab for this dog. You do not go towards him." So I stood there trying to get his attention and tossing treats, and he's sailing by this way and sailing back that way, you know. And eventually he sort of notices, but he still runs on. He's a Doberman, you know, but a little beagle was there in the park. And that's when I learned this technique.
Accomplice dog?
Accomplice dog. If the dog you've got doesn't work, then train another dog because your dog will soon check it out. So I'm training this beagle to come and sit and lie down and roll over. So now the Doberman's looking at me. So I chuck a treat over his head. Increase the distance. Don't chuck it between you and the dog. Otherwise, the dog will come towards you slowly. So treat over his head. He goes and gets it. Then 3 more between him and me. Tastier treats.
Okay.
So a bit of kibble over his head, tastier treat. Till eventually he's coming close. So I wind him around my body so he touches me with his collar. Then I take his collar and I say, "Gotcha." And I went treat, 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 treat. Go play it. And I walked off quickly. Where's the dog? He's right here.
Right.
Can we do that again? He had never had 10 sequential treats before. And so the point is, you cannot train a dog unless you're in a safe, confined space or until the dog is ready to train. And anyone who says, my dog won't come when called, it does, because they've come to your clinic and there's the dog sitting next to them. So it must have eventually come back when called. So anyway, what you do is the exercise is at home. Way out, the dog's kibble in the morning. Today you're going to feed the whole lot of his dinner hand-fed, teaching him very short, one step backwards, come sits. So come, sit, take the collar, praise, give the kibble. One step back. That's all you need. You don't need a 500-yard recall. Just a one-step recall. We'll do this in the kitchen. Multiple one-step come sits. But always when the dog comes, take his collar to prove that you could, so you don't end up with a dog that when you reach for him, he jumps back like this. Collar, praise, food. Collar, praise, food. Then you let him go again. Okay? Then you change it to 2-step, 3-step, 4-step, 5-step come sits. Now you're doing it in your living room.
Okay.
And the next step, we're going to increase the size of the area. Now we do it around the house. We do it outside. We do it in someone else's yard. Then we do it in a tennis court. So we're gradually expanding the area. And then a dog park. Then we increase the distractions. Now with other people there. Then with another dog there. But make sure the other dog's trained. Why? So if your dog doesn't come, the lure is you say, train dog, come here. And when your dog gets there, you show him the treat, but you don't give it. You give it to the other dog. So that's basically the process. You train your dog at home. Now we go to the dog park, and you may have to do the Doberman thing, because when you let him off leash, there's too many distractions. I would just let him do his thing for half an hour. But when he starts to pay attention to you, you're going to call him in. When he takes the food from you, give him another bit, give him another bit, so he keeps his nose here, take his collar, say the word gotcha, which just makes me feel so good. Because what it means is, I now own your brain. Give him 10 treats, then tell him go play and repeat it. You see, what most people do when they grab the dog and catch him, they take him home. They end the play session. Of course the dog doesn't want to come.
Right.
It's insanity. Or at home they call the dog and then they confine him.
But so now the dog's coming and it's getting a little snack and then he gets to go play again.
The only way to have a good recall is come here, sit, take the collar, go play. You've got to use the play as a reward, playing with other dogs and sniffing.
Okay, Janet had one quick question before we move on to myth 2. When would you recommend starting this? Is there an age?
Right now,
minimum?
When you're doing this. Yeah.
So,
hold your iPhone in your hand when you're watching the webinar and back up. Come here, sit. Touch the collar, treat. Come here, sit. I'm being serious.
I would suggest waiting till the end of the webinar, but you want to be able to focus. But the point being that you can do it with a puppy, you can do it with an adult dog, you can do it with anyone. All right. That's exciting, because I think if you guys at home try that, it's such a simple exercise. You can definitely do it today, and you will see results immediately. Yeah. After 15 minutes, your dog will.
Well, it's once that dog comes the first time, then training can begin. And you then cement it for the future using what was the distraction, playing and sniffing, now as the reward for coming.
All right.
Go
who out there has a problem with coming when called? Anyone out there? Because I want you to promise us you're going to give this a shot today. Because once you try it, you're going to see how quickly it works. And it's going to be life-changing.
I know they're all going to do it. They know I hate wasting time talking to people who are not going to follow advice.
And yes, Abby, at 6 years, yes, that's a good time to train. Although you can start before. All right. What about myth number 2?
That would be, I don't have the time or the skill to train my dog.
Okay. So if that is the myth, then that means that you do have the time and you do have the skill. Is that right?
You mean every owner has the time and the skill?
Yeah, them.
Oh, you.
Not you.
Well, not necessarily. You see, well, it depends on the technique you're using, because most training techniques are pretty complicated and very time consuming.
Okay.
I've always tried to make training quick and easy. Proving, of course, it's effective, and it goes without saying it's enjoyable, but it's so important it's quick and easy. It has to be easy or else the owners can't do it, but it's got to be quick, otherwise they won't have the time to do it. So that it's really big. And I, you know, I had a lot of fun years ago in a conference where presenting, and a lot of presenters were like, the really difficult red line dog aggression cases. So I thought, I'm giving it to the downright simple aggression cases, the quick to solve ones.
And those are the most common, right?
Yes. So let's solve it and get on. Let's stop talking about it. And it's the same, you know, whether we're teaching manners, whether we're talking about reactivity, let's solve it today. Quick and easy. But you always have to remember.
So everyone has the skill to use our methods, the ones that we are suggesting.
Yeah, ours are so easy, they're so simple. But yeah, if you lure reward retraining, there's a little to learn. But I always tell dog trainers, you know, be patient. You must never underestimate your own experience and expertise. That dog owners are not trainers, they're not you. So you can't tell them to train the dog the same way you would train your dog. You've got to use different methods for them. And that's how I would pick them. You know, I would start off with classical conditioning or auto shaping, then move to lure reward training because that's the quickest. So I'd start with the easiest, quickly change to the quickest, and we're off and running.
Okay. What about, what would you say is as you say, the easiest or the quickest method that people could be trying with their dogs?
The easiest in terms of changing, I mean, the all-time easiest, of course, would be classical conditioning. You just give a dog a treat, and that would change the way the dog feels about you. So you're getting a conditioned emotional response.
So the easiest is just hand feeding a dog.
Yeah, which is very useful for if your dog doesn't like your father-in-law or doesn't like your new boyfriend or something like this. You just give him, that's how the dog eats now.
So does that make sense to you guys? If you have a dog that you're, you know, want to be more confident and, you know, comfortable with people, simple hand feeding. You can do that today. The key is you got to get rid of your food bowl, right?
Oh yeah, no food bowl.
So if you have any problems, get rid of your food bowl right away. Simply hand feeding the dog.
In terms of changing the dog's behavior, though, obviously, of course, changing the dog's emotion and feelings will change behavior, but specifically changing the dog's behavior, auto shaping would be the way to go. And strangely,
that sounds fancy and complicated.
It is. Well, essentially what it means is the owner just sets up the situation. They take half a minute, set up the situation, and then the dog pretty much trains himself. The dog can train himself to settle down quietly and calmly.
Sounds too good to be true. Do you have an example?
It is. I do. Strangely enough. My favorite example is stuffing chew toys with food. It's pure in its simplicity. And I can remember the day I came up with this idea at a seminar where I had a really annoying person in the front row who everything I said, you know, well, try this, play chew toy games with your dog. Tried it, didn't work. Well, do this, tried it, didn't work. Didn't work.
You're trying to convince them to.
Yeah, everything was yes, but no, but, and what have you. And then I thought about it from the dog's point of view. And I thought, you know, the dog probably has no idea what this Kong is. He probably thinks it's a, you know, shock absorber from a motorcycle or something. You know, this rubber molded object.
Yeah.
So I thought, why don't you stuff it with food? And as I said this, it was like a light bulb comes on. I thought, oh my word, that is so clever. And that was the first auto shaping technique I came up with. And literally, if you stop feeding from a bowl and you feed the dog for a stuffed Kong, you reduce the number of barks per day by 90% within 24 hours. It's amazing.
That quickly.
You reduce the number of steps the dog takes, so you reduce hyperactivity. And instead, the dog lies down quietly and calmly. And you have, it's the quickest way to reprogram the dog's brain with the least amount of effort on behalf of the trainer. So, yeah, I love auto shaping techniques.
Do you have an example about a dog where, you know, stuffed chew toys were instrumental?
Well, yeah, but there we weren't trying to get the dog to lie down quietly and calmly. We were trying to get the dog to chew the chew toy and become a chew toyaholic. Because,
why is that?
Well, this was Claude, who we adopted.
Oh, yeah, I remember Claude.
You remember Claude, lovely big Claude, the big red.
Loved lettuce.
Loved lettuce. You could pull out lettuce. You could train him to do anything. Yeah, he was amazing. He was the best lettuce detection dog, I think, ever trained. Probably there's no others, but you have to have some claims to fame, you know. Anyway, when we picked him up from the shelter, I noticed his whole belly had been shaved. And so I asked what's going on there. And they said, oh, he had a laparotomy because he ate a basketball. I thought, oh. So we get him home. The first day, Kelly is grooming him, and the Zoom groom disappears. This plastic, rubber grooming thing, just chewed up and swallowed within a second. And we thought, oh my word. So, and the other problem with Claude was he bit me 4 times the first time I met him. So I thought, well, we'll have to put food on hold for that one. I'll just sacrifice myself. All the food goes in chew toys. And he actually wrote a testimonial in my book, that I have here, my good little dog book, that here's Claude. And he says, it's a really lovely testimony. I'm really proud of this. Right. When a dog writes his owner a testimonial, that's when you know the relationship is pretty cool. It says, my name is Claude, and I'm a Kongaholic. Hello, Claude. Kongs saved my life. I used to eat basketballs, which had to be surgical removed. Messy, dangerous. And so anyway, it took about a week.
Good dog, Claude.
And he just became a Kongaholic. That in the morning he'd wake up, first thing he'd do is get his Kong. And then when we'd come home, we'd always tell him, get your Kong. And when he'd bring it to us, we would refill it. So you see, we'd give him a stuffed Kong when we leave. And then if he'd wake up in the afternoon, like, oh, my owners are coming, better get the Kong. So it's in his mouth, ready for the refill. So you've got the Kong in their mouth when most destructive chewing works. And it definitely saved his life. It was terrible, the things he would eat. And we had some disasters because Claude was the tester dog for 2 huge companies and the many chew toys they produce. And we had to watch him really carefully, and he failed 95% of toys which are presently on the market.
They failed him.
And we quickly, it was like one crunch, there goes this toy, took it away from him. And so it's why we recommend the chew toys, which are good. Okay, so
if people want to use stuffed chew toys in their home, how do they do it? Well, what's the step-by-step process of
no food bowl.
Exercise 2?
It's no food bowl again. When you feed the dog from a bowl, aside from being physically and psychologically unhealthy, the psychological part is you're stealing the dog's life. That's what dogs do. They spend all day hunting for food, and you feed a lab in a bowl and whoop, it's gone. So now they're going to look for doggy entertainment, i.e., behavior problems.
Step 1, get rid of the food bowl. Step 2,
weigh out the food in the morning, put it in a container so everyone in the family knows the dog can have any of this in the course of the day as rewards in training. End of the day, moisten it, stuff it into chew toys, put them in the freezer to use the following day. This is literally...
Wait, say that part again?
After you moisten the food so it turns to mush, stuff it in the Kong, put it in the freezer.
Do you have to do that?
It just makes it harder to get out. You see,
so maybe like at the beginning, you could just put the food in dry.
You can put dry food in for the first couple of times, so the dog now gets used to prodding the Kong. And
so then it comes out easily.
And every bit of food that comes out, whether you're there or not, rewards the dog for chewing the chew toy. And because the easiest way to chew toys is lying down with their paw over it for lying down. And of course, you can't chew and bark at the same time. So it's reinforcing so much behavior, and it's giving the dog a hobby so that he's not going to fall apart or freak out when left at home alone. It does so much, but it's the easiest technique out there.
I can see just putting food inside of a chew toy. And so then if you want the dog to take a little longer, you can do the freezing trick. Or
and you can do all sorts of things. There's other toys. The squirrel dude is good. You have a treat meter for dry kibble. For people that feed raw diet, I recommend the biscuit ball. So you can stuff in your chicken wings and your duck's feet and freeze it. And it will take the dog forever to empty that out. And the longer it takes for the dog to eat, the more he's being reinforced for chewing with his Kong, for lying down quietly, calmly. And you're preparing him now, you know, for the sort of 5 to 8 months, you know, development of separation anxiety. It won't happen now because the dog says, oh, a Kong, thank goodness. Let me take it to my bed and lie down and chew for 2 hours. It's when you see a dog trained this way, you know, like you'll find, where's the dog? Oh, he's on his bed. Or, oh, he's in his crate. The door's open, but the dog's gone there of his own accord because I now have a hobby. It's like giving the dog crosswords or Sudoku, you know, or soaps on the telly, you know, or webinars to watch for that matter.
Okay, well, that sounds very doable for our people at home. Why don't we move on to myth number 3?
My dog can't be trained. Oh, good Lord. My dog is too old. My dog is too young. My dog is handicapped. My dog has physical disabilities. My dog's the wrong breed. My dog's too
Let me try this one more
reactive.
time.
The dog. All these excuses.
If that's the myth, that must mean that all dogs can be trained?
Yep.
Yes?
Absolutely.
I got one.
All dogs can be trained.
Right.
And the fact here is if you have any excuse, because these are excuses or silly non-logical reasons not to, the dog needs more training, not less. But I have yet to meet the dog that can't be trained. I've met some slow learners that take, say, 200 repetitions or 200 trials to criterion, like Claude, for example, was one slowest learner I ever met. But no, training is training. And people forget this. We're not coercing the dog. We're not bribing it. We are conditioning it. And conditioning is a subconscious process. You cannot resist it. So when someone's conditioning you, you can't resist this. If they're conditioning you to like them, you're going to like them. And it's why I say gotcha to dogs when they take that first treat and I got their collar. Because I now know I own
resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile. Yes. They will soon join the Borg.
Okay, so every dog can be trained. The old dogs, the young dogs, the different breeds.
And they deserve to be trained.
Why is that?
Jamie, it's an education. This is how we communicate to the dog. The first step of training is teaching the dog human words for doggy behaviors and actions. So like I used to be able to say to Phoenix, you remember, Feeny, come here, take this and go to Jamie, please. I just taught her name, Phoenix, come, take, go to Jamie. And now the dog could find you, number one, that could be useful, but deliver mail. We called it Malamute mail. So, you know, yeah, to deny a dog an education is like, well, cutting down communication channels. Now we're going to sit in the evening on the couch like this and we're not going to communicate with each other. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's possible, but impractical to learn the dog's languages. So we just teach the dog ours. That training enriches the relationship. Training is fun. Training is everything. To me, it's every interaction you have with your dog. It's a training interaction.
Okay, I've got
Every
more.
dog deserves to be trained.
Got more questions about that. I do want to take a super quick step back just to address. Maxie had a little question about stuffing chew toys. What do you do if you have multiple dogs? How would you handle that?
Same thing. I was just in a house with multiple dogs, and 2 of them change nearly every day, and they get a chew toy each. Okay. You see, that's not the problem. The problem is, do you have multiple dogs that get along safely?
Okay.
So I'm not even saying, no, if your dog squabble, what dogs don't squabble? That's the whole point of being a dog. You know, it's like, what people do you know that don't squabble? So the issue is not that you're giving stuffed Kongs. The issue is not that your dogs squabble. The issue is, do you have a dog that harms other dogs when it squabbles?
Right.
And that is an issue you've got to deal with because that is dangerous.
So with 3 dogs, you have 3 Kongs, and if that's a problem, that's a different.
Sometimes issue. I have 3 dogs, I give them 1 Kong, work it out. But I do that when I'm there to monitor. And I've had, like when we had Hugo and Dune, they would share a Kong. They're quite happily to do it. You know, Hugo would get the big end and Dune got the little hole, you know.
Oh, how sweet. Okay, back to myth 3 here.
Very good question, though.
Every dog being trained. Do you have any examples that kind of pushed you to your limit, where you questioned whether this situation was actually workable? You know, like that dog in Japan who had never been off leash. Something a little extreme.
I probably do, but I can't think of one.
Perhaps.
What does it say in their notes, Jamie?
Perhaps a situation where you had a number of reactive dogs all in one place.
Oh, yes.
Because I know
right.
there's a lot of people who have reactivity
This was
problems.
How embarrassing. This was huge, actually. It wasn't just one difficult dog. It was 42 dogs at the same time. We taught these reactive dog classes in Japan. Mm-hmm. We would announce them and they would be enrolled literally within minutes.
Oh, wow. I mean, they'd be sold out.
Yeah, and for some reason we took 42 dogs. I don't know why, before we cut it off. And they were all little dogs. I mean, I would say 3/4 of them were miniature Dachshunds, Chihuahuas, and Yorkies. And they snap not just at dogs, people. I mean, they were reactive to dogs and people. Mm-hmm. And so what we did, again, was like the easiest techniques there are out there. That so often when the dog is a challenge, mm-hmm. I say, well, let's go back to the easy stuff. Classical mm-hmm. conditioning, all and on reward training. Mm-hmm. There is no point in saying to this dog, sit or shush, because he's over the top and he ain't mm-hmm. going to do it. So what we do is we stand there, the dogs are all on leash, and I just say, right, give your dog a treat. Now walk, give your dog a treat. Uh-huh. Now walk, stand still, give the dog a treat.
Sounds pretty simple.
And simple classical conditioning. Uh-huh. And if the dog, and it's a temperament test too, if the dog doesn't take the treat, we know he's probably stressed. Mm-hmm. So I move him over to a corner. Mm-hmm. But if the dog takes the treat in this room, he's taking the treat in a room with 41 other reactive dogs. That's the association. And you're going to feed him so many treats. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably 200 in this session, which is, well, that's why we will use a very special kibble for this, Ziwi Peak. Because of the shape of the kibble, you can break each piece into 8.
I've heard this question so many times. Ziwi, Z-I-W-I, just a brand name, right?
Yeah.
But it's a healthy food that we like.
Yeah, as in peak of the mountain. They wanted to call it Kiwi Peak, but the name was taken. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a New Zealand dog food to it.
But so you can break it up so you can do
That's the whole point. So basically you can break up 12 treats and you've got 96 rewards to give. Just 12 pieces of kibble. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't have shares in the company. It's just the best classical conditioning training treat.
So with these 42 yapping reactive,
we just keep feeding them.
Oh, wow.
They've never had so many treats in their life. And we keep moving across the floor. Otherwise, the dog will get used to where he is and the dogs around him.
So what's the end result
and be fine.
The end of this?
The end result, well, to start off, before we get to the end result, every time you take a step, the dogs react again. Uh-huh. But after a while, now you can take a few steps without the dog reacting until the end result is you can walk anywhere with the dog. You haven't given any instructions and stop, and the dog no longer reacts. Why? Because his head is looking up at you, the treat giver.
So it's just one training session, a room full of reactive dogs.
We're going to do this for about 2 to 3 hours. Okay. And so the first is we just give a treat, classical conditioning treat.
Do you guys think you can try that?
And you will find a lot of these dogs by now will walk by your side nicely. And when you stop, they sit. Mm-hmm. And you think about it because the treat's coming down from here. So to look up at you, the dog has to bend his neck, which is uncomfortable. So a lot of them put their butts down. So we haven't even asked for loose leash walking. We haven't even asked for a sit. But that's what a lot of the dogs are doing. I call this meet the beast. Yep, we got 42 reactive dogs. We're going to work with them. We're going to give them lots of rewards, irrelevant of their behavior, because it's classical conditioning. But, of course, you can't classically condition without operantly conditioning at the same time. Okay. So you will be training the dogs to do things too, which is walk by your side and sit up and sit, or look up and sit when you stop. Then we move to all and unreward training. This is the easiest way to operantly condition. You just look at the dog. You don't give instructions. Because the dog won't do them, then you will get upset. And that's it's why we have this problem, you see. Every time a dog comes up, you go, sit, sit, sit. You jerk on the leash. So the dog thinks, that you are reactive towards other dogs. You're fine, off leash. But when you're on leash, man, if another dog comes up, you go, and so now your dog's trying to say to the other dog, oh, keep back. She's unstable, man. She's unstable. You can't do this. So now I tell them, when I say now, I want you to watch your dog and ask yourself the question, is the dog being bad or not bad? The reason I say bad and not bad is if you say bad and good, people never say the dog's good, so he's not doing anything. I said, that's the point. He's not reacting. He's not jumping. He's not lunging. I know. So I say, is he being bad or not bad? If he's being not bad, you give him a piece of food. And then we do it again. And what we're teaching people here is a really important skill in any relationship, human-dog or human-human. Representative observation and representative feedback. That the biggest human foible that we have is we ignore dogs when they're good. When they go bad, we pay attention to them.
Or ignore them when they're not bad.
That is true. And so we actually draw attention and unintentionally reinforce, the behavior that we don't want, the bad behavior or the undesirable behavior is probably a more descriptive term.
Darlene had an interesting question. What do you do? I mean, a lot of our training techniques rely on giving food. If your dog is too stressed and they're not taking food,
that's a bigger issue. As I say, it's the temperament test. I tell all vets this. I tell all groomers this. I tell all dog trainers this. You don't just touch a dog. To touch a dog is an earned privilege, not a right. And one day you'll meet your comeuppance and get nailed. You offer a dog a treat. If he takes it, you offer him 100 more. We're up and running.
So I assume this is the dog's
If he doesn't take the treat, if he doesn't take the treat, I want to know, is he worried about the situation or is it me? So I give the treat to the owner. If he won't take it from the owner, it's the situation. We'll move him to one side, put him behind a screen to do this. Or occasionally I have to say to people, you'll have to take your dog out. It's too stressful for him. But if the dog won't take the treat from you, but he takes it from the owner, then it's you the dog is stressed about. So that's a different issue. And that has to be dealt with one-on-one. I can't be in a room with dogs who are stressed by people when I'm paying attention to the fact they're stressed with other dogs. So anyway, back to our class. Before long, every dog walks by your side calmly, because now we're reinforcing it, and every dog's in a sit stay looking up at you. And we haven't given a single instruction. And this is very important because when you have the same glow on your face with all and none reward training as you do with clicker training, you see people come out of a training class and they're like, hey, dude, it's like they've been smoking or something, and the dogs are wagging their tails and we had a good time.
So it's very enjoyable.
We got a lot of treats. And the reason is because they can't be wrong, because you don't give a request or a command. The dog can't be wrong, so the owner doesn't get upset. So I tell them, no instructions here. You're going to observe the dog's behavior representatively every time I say now, and you're going to give representative feedback, because every time I say now, 95% of the time, the dog is being not bad. He's being good. So let's give him a reward. And we've done it in one session. And that's the sad thing. This was so easy. But what had stopped was people aren't observing their dogs and people aren't giving the appropriate feedback. And there is nothing, you can't beat positive reinforcement. You can't beat it. You can't fight it. It's fantastic.
Wow. All right. Myth 3.
Myth 3.
So I imagine you guys at home, that's probably been a lot of information. Right. It seems like we covered a lot pretty quickly. And I'm wondering, are any of you guys interested in diving a little deeper into any of these subjects?
Jamie, of course they are.
You think they are? Are you guys interested? Because as we said, this is something we're trying, something new, and we've put together a new product. This is early bird sort of access. We're still kind of a work in progress, but if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to tell you about it and maybe even present you guys with kind of a special offer that's just for you who's here in this webinar live.
And I'm intrigued by this because I don't actually know what it is. So what is the offer?
It is the Dunbar's Dog Training masterclass. So as we were talking about, Ian, you've made a lot of resources. You've done a lot of videos, a lot of seminars, a lot of workshops, hundreds of days, hundreds of hours of videos, and
hundreds of days.
Yeah,
actually,
and
thousands of days. Now I think about it,
and we've offered all of it.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's a little overwhelming. It's a little too much. People don't have the time to get. Oh yes, look, there they say yes, absolutely, and of course, they're very interested. That's nice. A lot of people don't have time to sit through hundreds of days worth of dog training content.
To me, talk.
So what we've decided to do, we looked through your archives and we found the best of the best.
Oh.
We pulled out the clips thinking about what was going to be the most useful for people based on the problems that are the most common. So, as someone earlier was pointing out.
Best of the best, one easy course, science-based solutions, get results fast.
Yes.
This is pretty high tech, Jamie.
Well, yes, this is a piece of paper, and then I wrote it with a pen. And now it's on an easel.
I'm not making fun of him. I would like to say that I think this is an incredible idea that I always tell trainers that never underestimate your experience and expertise. What's so easy for you is so difficult for your client. And one thing that's difficult for me is I couldn't dream of some problems that owners have. I think it's always good to look at information with fresh eyes. Like when you came on board, you weren't a dog trainer because now you know more than most people out there.
Yeah.
But they were fresh eyes. And your webinar production crew here, same thing.
Yeah.
They pull out things that I wouldn't necessarily think about.
Yeah, I mean, well, we asked.
That's cool.
We asked our dog people, our audience, what were the.
Can I sign up?
You can. Yes, you can. And you'll find the easy and proven science-based methods that are very fun that we've been talking about. And you guys have gotten a little taste of, but we'll be going much deeper. Of course, there won't be any aversives. This is all, dog friendly.
Goes without saying, so don't say it. They should know us by now. This will be all reward based.
And of course, the fast results is key. We want you to
quick and
start
easy,
having success
quick and easy,
very, very quickly. So let's talk a little bit about what are those common problems. And this isn't everything. This is the core modules, the core topics that we're focusing on based on
barking. I bet.
Yeah, there you go. Barking.
Barking.
We should have done it like Family Feud.
What's that?
Style.
Yes.
Right.
Name 5 of the problems.
Barking. I bet some of you guys at home have dogs that bark out of control. Maybe they bark incessantly. Maybe they bark at night, keep you up. Bark when delivery people come. It doesn't have to be that way. We have simple solutions that can resolve this incredibly frustrating problem.
It's about 80% of problems. Barking, jumping up, not coming when called, pulling on leash, reactivity, separation anxiety.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Right. So many people have dogs that, jump up on them, jump up on guests when they're excited. And, oh man, you were telling me about some of the terrible training methods people used to recommend. None of that. This is all fun, friendly, and very effective. Not coming when called. We talked about that, at great length, but we'll go into much more detail.
I think it is worth saying, though, that with these problems, when dogs bark, when they don't come when called, when they jump up, when they pull on leash, a lot of people out there have said, like the dogs are dissing you or they're being dominant and the people get very adversarial about this, and a lot of training is punishment-based. I mean, it used to be you pull out a book and thumb through it and just look at jumping up, hold on to the dog's paws, squeeze the dog's paws, hit the dog over the head with a newspaper, stamp on his hind toes, flip him over the backwards, knee in his chest. Woo! Our solution is just tell the dog to sit.
Yeah. So we will teach you how to have your dog sit calmly when greeting guests. We'll teach your dog to come when called in a park, when they're chasing a squirrel, in the most distracting of environments.
And it's why reward training is quick and easy. There's only one thing to teach. Teach your dog to sit. Teach your dog to come. Teach your dog to pee in this place. Teach your dog to chew a chew toy, rather than having to punish the dog for doing all else. So,
all right, Tracy had an interesting question, which I don't actually know the answer to. I think multiple people have asked if this will be offered to watch again later because they have to go. And hopefully one of our admin moderator people will answer that question.
Well, this one's live. Oh, we will be giving this again.
I don't think you should answer
It'll be live. All right, I shouldn't answer.
I think we should let one of our webinar tech people answer that for them. But
they can't watch this again. It's live. When it's over, it's over.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Pulling on leash. We will show you how to have your dog walk on a loose leash and focus on you when you want. Reactivity. We can have your dog be calm, confident when meeting other dogs, meeting other people. And separation anxiety, we can have your dog enjoy time spent at home alone and not get upset being left away from you.
It's important. See, these two dogs are really upset. We got to do something about it quickly. It's not a happy camper. We can't just say, oh, he's shy or he's anxious. We got to solve it. We got to solve it right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've been talking a lot, but I think it would be good to let you guys hear from some people who have tried these methods themselves. So we've got some nice video testimonials lined up. They're short.
We do.
It's just 4 minutes, and I think you'll enjoy them. So without further ado, cue.
Hey, how are you? My name is Fern, also known as Fernando Camacho. I'm a dog behavior consultant and trainer in northern New Jersey. So I just started working with dogs, and the problem was it didn't really sit well for me. I didn't really, it just felt like this wasn't, I felt like there's got to be a better way. I wasn't seeing the results that I thought I should. So I started to do a little bit more research. And I went online, and I started Googling dog behavior, and one name kept coming up over and over and over and over again. Ian Dunbar, Ian Dunbar, Ian Dunbar. I'm like, all right, who the heck is this guy? He's everywhere. Let me learn about him. And I started to read some of his books, his blogs, videos. I just started to soak it all in. And the more that I kind of learned, the more it all kind of, like everything kind of aligned for me. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly it.
Oh, so my name's Jack. I'm 20 years old. I currently live in England, and the only dog I own at the moment is this little man, Kevin, here. We've just been out on a little walk. So I was doing IT work for the charity I currently work for, again, a year and a half ago, and the head trainer at the time recommended, because I was interested in looking at the dog training stuff, recommended I come have a look at a Dr. Ian Dunbar course. And I went along and I bought one of his online seminars. It was the 3-day science-based dog training with feeling, or words to that effect. And again, I knew nothing about dog training, so I was coming into this completely blind. So I watched those 3-day seminars. I loved them so much that I went ahead and bought all his other online seminars and workshops and just marathon them.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I live in Virginia with my 8-year-old Husky Corgi mix, Harley. He was food aggressive, he was leash reactive, he was a space starter, and he had anxiety, a tremendous amount of anxiety. And so all of these problems made our first year very difficult. The knowledge that I've found and the techniques that I've started to use, like rewarding behavior with treats, redirecting, and just making things fun, really made a difference.
You know, I didn't come into the dog training world, or I'm not from the dog training world originally. So I just started with no knowledge. So to have him explain concepts like law reward training, positive reinforcement, all or none reward training, etc., and have that be my starting point, I think it's the greatest blessing I ever could have had, you know? These training methods are fun, they're engaging, and they're not harmful, they're not aversive. And that's a huge, huge thing for me.
As far as what really helped Harley and I was actually something I really liked from Dr. Dunbar, which was making the relationship fun. Training should be fun, there should be play. What's the point if it's not fun, right? To those who are on the fence about Dr. Dunbar's training, about science-based training, this is what I have to say. It works. Hands down, it works.
For me, I'm indebted to the science-based training methods. I'm indebted to Dr. Ian Dunbar. and his methodology, and I'm utterly indebted to positive reinforcement training as a whole. So on behalf of Kevin, on behalf of me, and I'm sure on behalf of a number of other positive reinforcement trainers who have discovered Dr. Ian Dunbar's work, his methodology, and his passion for helping teach dog trainers, dog owners, any dog professional, anyone even interested in dogs, his knowledge and talents, thank you.
All right, guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those as much as we did. So as you can see, these methods, they work for anybody. You know, they work for any dog owner with dog behavior problems. So my question, and I think we covered a little bit, but just to reiterate, these methods are so simple. Why don't people make use of them? What do you think?
Well, I think we went through it. The 3 myths, you know, that, you know, no time, you know, I don't have the skill, dog training doesn't work, or my dog's untrainable. But also, I think because people don't know that there is an easier way, a more enjoyable way out there, which of course is the reason for this webinar.
Right.
Not just talking to the folks we're chatting to now, but for them to spread the word. I think it's such a shame that people don't have a lot more fun with their dogs. Instead, we're always talking about problems.
All right. So this is the Dunbar Dog Training Masterclass, which we're valuing at $497.
Wow.
But we didn't want to stop there because we wanted to make this information as convenient, as accessible as possible. And we know that, you know, videos are wonderful, and it's a really great way to convey information, but there's other useful ways to convey information. So we decided to add, for anyone who signs up for the masterclass, a entirely free bonus, the Expert Audio Series at $197. And this is a 13-episode course that will get you up to speed on your methods and techniques while you're riding in the car or taking your dog for a walk. And I think it's a really wonderful complement to the masterclass core modules.
So they can take me for a drive.
Yeah, you can go for a drive, go for a walk. But you've probably been noticing that in our focus on the problems that people are facing, we're kind of missing something that's pretty traditional for us.
I would say puppy training.
Puppy training, that's right. Which is why we want to make sure that you guys are not missing out. We are including the Serious Puppy Training course. So this will show you what you need to do for the puppy training, which is so important, even if you don't have a puppy now, because someday you might get another puppy or a friend of yours might get a puppy. And actually, a lot of the techniques outlined in the puppy training course are applicable to adults. It's just a matter of taking a little more time and energy with adults. But so we've included this.
Are pretty much identical. It takes longer with adult dogs, and sometimes it can be a little tricky.
Right. And so once again, we're throwing this in as a free bonus. If you sign up for the masterclass, you're going to get the Serious Puppy Training course as well included. And we can't stress the importance of puppy training enough. But of course, this whole class today is if your dog is no longer a puppy, we want to help you as well. But we've got one last thing. That's not all, folks. We're also going to be including.
I'm intrigued.
The Dr. Dunbar's Good Little Dog book.
Hey.
Right here, we've got a copy of it. This book is very dear to our hearts. Ian wrote it. Ian took the photos and typeset it. And we've been publishing it. It's our favorite book. And the first 20 people who sign up for the masterclass today will get a signed copy of it. So with all of these items, you've got the masterclass for $497, the audio series for $197, the puppy training course for $297, the Good Little Dog book for $47. That's a total value of $1,038. And the question I want to ask you is, do you have any problems right now with your dog? And, if you do, think about the biggest problem, because everyone has, their one big problem with their dog, whether it's, pulling on leash and barking at other dogs while they're out at the park, or whether it's in the home, and it's, you know, that destructive chewing habit that costs, you know, thousands of dollars. What is your big problem? And then imagine if we could make that problem go away. You know, if you can solve that problem in the next couple of days, what is that worth to you? And I mean, I guess another way to think about it is like, if you wanted to hire a private trainer, how would that go?
What else are they going to do if they hire a trainer? It would cost, if the trainer comes to your home, it's going to be at least $100 a visit. Board and train, you're talking $1 to $2 grand a week. And then, of course, the dog comes back home and he reverts again.
Right, and then you're not doing the training yourself, so you're not kind of.
I was actually shocked when I saw that price, but when you think of alternatives, it ain't that much. And of course, it's nothing compared with not solving the problem, either in terms of your dog's anxiety and feelings or the damage done.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, my chewing problem cases. My favorite was the Akita, which did 12 grand's worth of damage in 30 minutes, interior of Mercedes.
Wow.
And then this Malamute in Manhattan in an apartment, that was $27,000 worth of damage in one morning.
Wow.
And you think about it, you know, there's so much more damage they could do. That's actually, those were just records I had from the 70s.
My goodness.
So they're without inflation. So it's like, it looks actually like a pretty good deal.
Right. And so, I mean, so that's the value that we're putting on this course, but we're pretty excited because we're going to be offering it for a little bit less. So,
so value is different from cost.
For the general public, we're going to be offering this course for $500. So we think that's a pretty phenomenal deal. But for you guys today, as we said, this is the first time we're doing this webinar. This is early bird access. So for you guys today, we are going to be offering it for $197. Wow. But that's a limited time price. It's valid till Sunday. And if you're interested, you want to go to dunbartraining.com/go. And I think you'll see a button so you can add it to your cart. And you might also be able to see a link on the right side of your screen now if you're interested. And we're very excited about this. We hope you guys are as well. And this is an opportunity for a relatively small investment to really, start a different stage in your life with your dog. If you've had, frustrating problems that have been driving you crazy, today is the day to start fixing them. And the solutions are pretty easy. And, we lay them out very clearly in one manageable course with the masterclass. And so we're really hoping that you'll check it out. And if you're still on the fence, despite the low price and, what you've heard today, then you don't need to worry because it's totally risk-free. We're going to do a money-back guarantee.
Of course.
So if you sign up, you don't like what you see, just shoot us an email and we will refund you. So there's no reason not to give it a try.
You'll be giving away my house next. Or me.
Come.
What a concept.
The first person to sign up gets a free Dr. Ian Dunbar.
Yeah. But no, the first 20 people do get an autograph book, which will be the Good Little Dog Book. It's my favorite dog book.
Unfortunately, no, I don't think we can offer any discounts to people. I see Scott is wondering if you've taken Serious or Udemy courses. That won't be part of the discount. This is US funds from Marge. And so once again, dunbartraining.com/go, add it to your cart. At this point, we'll take a few questions if anyone has them, and then we'll be saying goodbye. But
I think it's because this is a unique product. It's a distillation, as Jamie says, the best of the best, which I personally think is a good idea. It's kind of cool. Rather than having to slog your way through a few one-day seminars, someone else has obviously done that work for you and selected what they think is the best information. Anyway, let's have some questions, shall we?
Well, it seems like we mostly have questions about the course. Although I see from Janet, do you plan to do any in-person clinics in 2018?
Just one, Australia. Just one a year now.
Just one a year. This past year you were in England.
Year before Mexico.
Kathleen. Oh, okay. Here we go. Our admins. How long is the master class? Well, it's those several modules, and actually, as we said, it's also still kind of we're continuing to add stuff. So we've got the core in there now. I don't actually know running time.
We don't know.
Maybe Ede or Mike can chime in.
Yeah.
Will you be able to get CEUs for this? Not at this present time. There will not be an official certification at this time. Yes, it's an online course. Let's see. 10-year-old dog sniffing the ground constantly, not a fan of food. Not really sure if that constitutes a question.
Well, I would either make him a fan of food, which is no food bowl, hand feed him. And when do you hand feed him? When you're walking him, well, he's got to lift his head off the ground if he wants to eat. Or use a tennis ball or a tug toy, whatever he likes better. But baby steps. First get him to look up, and then reward, then look up for a second, then look up for 2 seconds, then 4, then 5, know what your personal best is. And then I would integrate nice walking by your side, looking up, with he can walk and sniff as the reward, because that's what he wants to do.
All right. Here's I think kind of follows up on that is, what about an older dog who ignores food treats? I think you kind of addressed it, that you might use toys. Or also, the question is, are you feeding from a food bowl? That's my first question.
You know, when people say, oh, my dog doesn't like treats, it is actually amazing what they're feeding the dogs and what else. The dogs are getting also hot dogs and bits of chicken and what have you. But even if they're getting kibble and a lump in the bowl, you are ruining, you're sabotaging the use of food as lures and rewards in training. And use of food as a lure and rewards is magical. So no food bowl. If you ask me what is the single most important piece of advice you could give to any owner with any problem, I would say don't feed your dog out of a food bowl. Now these treats are so much more valuable, and they're going to have a much bigger effect. And for some dogs, you have to train them to like food, and to train them to really like food by turning it into a secondary reinforcer, as we talk about in, so many of my seminars. So the dog has to sit and take a piece of kibble before every good thing, before tummy rubs, before you throw the tennis ball, before getting on the couch. So it becomes a secondary reinforcer.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's see. Any more little questions? Right. So Lisa says she loves the idea of the best because she's taken some of your online courses in the past. And the idea of the length of the master course.
Fell asleep. She obviously fell asleep in the other courses.
Why do you say that?
Long. Well, because she wants to know the length of the master course again. We haven't got a clue. I'm sorry. This was done by the webinar team, and Jamie and I were tangential to this.
But you can shoot us an email, and I'm sure we can
find out the info. Yeah,
get back to you guys. I'd like to remind everyone that the first 20 people who register are going to get a signed copy of Dr. Dunbar's Good Little Dog Book. All right. I think it might be about time to say goodbye.
Yes, you should be in your lunch hours, guys, and I got to get out shopping today.
Well, we really appreciate you guys joined us today. We know that your time is valuable, and thanks for bearing with us. This was
it's been kind of difficult for me. I don't know about Jamie here.
We had a lot of fun with it, and so we hope you guys had fun as well.
And goodbye. Thanks for listening.
DunbarTraining.com/go.
Remember, till when do they have for this?
I think they have till Sunday.
Just Sunday. Then that's it. Yeah.
So, cool. I've got a few more minutes. We could stick on for a little bit longer. Let's see. My 5-year-old has a problem.
You change your mind?
Mike sent us a text.
Oh, he did? He said, what are you doing? Where are you going?
Marketing Mike is our behind the scenes.
Goodbye. No, you can't get back in there. Okay, right. We're ready.
Is this a do-it-your-own pace course?
Soft kibble. Quite easy. Out of it, sausage machine or spaghetti machine.
All right. Is there anyone out there who doesn't think that the methods that we've covered are going to work for them, or that they might be too difficult, or, any of those three myths that we talked about? Because there's some truth to them, and they're very pervasive and they're very persistent. So,
well, and the dog it's like my dog can't be trained. You see, you've got to program your brain. If, we come up with the reason why my dog can't be trained, then think how to change that. So we've already had, my dog doesn't like food, my dog can't eat food. Think of the alternative where you can make it possible. And it's really important, because we have this knee-jerk reaction. Someone tells us or suggests we do something, and we say, oh no, that won't work because I'm busy on Tuesdays. Well, what about Wednesday? Or Thursday? And so always adapt it to what you're doing. The dog doesn't like food, then train your dog to like food, or use something else. It is very important, I think, to remain creative.
Okay, let's see. We got some nice compliments on our poor Scott. His problem is that he has 7 dogs.
Well, there's your problem, Scott.
Okay, Mary says she purchased the course. Now her email says $997. It sounds like it could be some sort of glitch in our email system, but don't fret. We will definitely resolve that, whatever might be the issue there.
It was like the health insurance this month. I did it online and they deducted it twice.
That's exciting. We see a couple people who have already signed up. Well done, guys.
All right.
I'm pretty sure you will have gotten in time to get your signed copy. Okay. I like that the methods are great to prevent problems, but confusing about solving them. Oh, well, I wonder if you can be more specific about a particular issue.
No, we were talking all about resolution today. You've got a problem with no recall. Here's a dog with a recall. You've got a dog that won't sit. Here's a dog that sit. You've got a dog that's reactive. You've got one that isn't. So today, the focus was really on resolution. But as I said earlier, the treatment protocols are identical to prevention protocols. It's just that treatment will take longer because of 2 things. One, you got to get rid of the bad habit before in training or conditioning a new one. And 2, as dogs get older, they are more resistant to change.
Okay,
like
so
humans.
Our behind the scenes guys are telling us that yes, in fact, there was a little bit of an error on the email. Everyone who purchased now got the $197 price, but the email mistakenly says $997.
$3,900,000.
That was a mistake. Apologize for the confusion.
That's why you were going to give away my house, so we can get the money to buy a mansion. Yeah.
So Scott wanted to know when the modules will be offered. You get access to the modules as soon as you sign up for the masterclass. So if you sign up now, you can start watching now. All right. My dad, it's 4,000 miles away and I'm very close to dad. So it warms the cockles too. See you too. Oh,
yeah.
Love to warm cockles. Now, that said about the modules, not that said about loving dad, about the modules. This is
quickly he changes.
The core is up there, but we're going to continue to be adding content. We have a couple things that we already have in mind, but we're also going to be learning more about what you guys want. So,
well, we'll get feedback.
Right.
And what are you laughing at?
I don't know. Mike keeps texting us. All right. Any other questions? Yes, the famed Dunbar Ponzi scheme. Indeed. The last slide is the pyramid.
All collapsing.
No. Will the modules be available for an extended time? I'm under the impression you buy once, you get lifetime access. So I think, yes, you can buy now while you've got the great price, and then dive in when you have the time. All right. Let's see. In the researches you've done about dog behavior, unfortunately, I don't think that we have any plans to publish any of the research. It was,
no, a bunch was published, about 15 articles.
I mean, the beauty of a lot of the stuff that you researched is like you can see it very quickly in a single trial.
Well, what I've been doing is writing up a lot of the stuff in these behavior programs we have for vets and breeders. So you got some really interesting reading there. They've only been up there we didn't announce them because they're up, but they aren't quite finished yet. So yeah, I am writing up the research, but in a popular format. But to be honest, publishing articles is really boring. It's so boring. And I like to look at the wealth of, data there and say, well, this is what happened. I did publish, I think, some numbers when in the breeders program for timing how do you time the day of ovulation? because most breeders don't know that, which just makes it more difficult to breed.
Yeah.
And you can determine it within a 24-hour accuracy just by observing behavior.
Mm-hmm. You know, one question I saw come up a few times was about the chew toy training. And does the stuffed Kong, does it only reduce barking while there's food in it? Like if your dog eats the food, gets it out in 5 minutes?
Oh, no. The whole point of stuffing the Kong is you are training the dog to chew the Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So even when they run out of food,
right now they've
still got this Kongaholic chewing.
I mean, dogs
desire.
Naturally like to chew toys aside, right?
I mean, you're basically trying to teach the dog, you know, if you could just spend most of your day on your bed sleeping, and when you wake up, chew your chew toy.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's empty, we have a massive
sure thing, Michelle,
toy box. Mm-hmm. And I'll see the dogs go up there and they sniff all the toys. Then they pull out one. And I think, well, why did they select this one? There's a little tiny bit of food there that hasn't been, you know.
Yeah.
And,
right. I mean, because like, even if you don't do any chew toy training with your dog is probably going to find something to chew.
Yeah.
Say a sneaker. And while they're chewing that sneaker, it's reducing their barking. The problem is they're chewing your sneaker.
Yes.
Right. And so encouraging them to chew the chew toy now, even if there's no food in it or a tiny residue. But as you were saying, there are tricks you can do to make it so the food comes out slower.
Yeah, it's a very important question, though, because so many people are hung up on bribing or still luring. They've still got food in their hand for much too long, and they miss the whole point of what conditioning is, that behavior is changed by its consequences. Mm-hmm. Behavior is changed by rewards. That changing the antecedent, you'll only get a temporary change in behavior. The dog will do it now, but no, the question is, will he do it tomorrow? Mm-hmm. So conditioning is for the future. Mm-hmm. You're changing the dog's behavior and how he's going to react or act in the future.
Fiona was wondering what were the other chew toys that you mentioned. I think you said the squirrel dude, right?
Yeah, I like the squirrel dude for stuffing with dry kibble. I like the biscuit ball for stuffing with raw diets. And for like guests coming around, if you want a quick hour lying down, I use the Big Kahuna football. Mm-hmm. And I usually stuff it with a cheese stick. I must admit, it's not very healthy for the dog, but it's when
we all deserve
it's like if you have, you know, people, they got kids or they don't like dogs. I say footballs, and the dogs still take their footballs, go and lie down, and you've got a good hour. Mm-hmm. Where they won't bother you. Mm-hmm. So they're the 4 toys I like. They're all made out of rubber. That's really important. I don't like any plastic or nylon toy at all. Mm-hmm. They're downright dangerous. The dogs can break them. The dogs can swallow them. And there's a big difference between if you swallow a natural item and an inorganic one, whether or not it passes through. Uh-huh. So amazingly, like cats, they always chewing cotton, and then they swallowed the needle. If it was cotton or silk, it usually comes out the other end. If it's nylon, it doesn't. Mm. So nylon socks would be death for dogs, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why we train them to chew toys and then tidy up your house.
Let's see. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this. What do you do if your dogs are fighting over their stuffed chew toys? If you have multiple dogs, as you said, you give your multiple dogs a single stuffed chew toy. But...
Yeah, well, I would probably then do the chew toy training because I want to be there when the dogs fight. Otherwise, you'd certainly have no confidence about leaving them alone together. Mm-hmm. So with a client, the first question I ask is, where are your dogs now? And they usually say, oh, they're all at home together. Mm-hmm. I said, then you've obviously got no problem. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not scared by fighting or squabbling. It's what dogs do. You know, if I'm there after 3 seconds, I say, dogs, quit it. Just stop it. We don't want this. You know, solve it. Get over it. The nitty gritty is, are they hurting each other? But, you know, otherwise, resolve it. Do something. Say something. For some reason, you know, training has changed, I think, in the last 20 years. And people now, they don't use their voices. Mm-hmm. And whereas the voice
So you would say, stop fighting.
I would say, quit it. Both of you. And if they started again, I said, you're missing my point. Mm-hmm. You know, you down, you down, you down. Mm-hmm. So now the question is,
does that
do you
work
have
because they
downstays in
understand the words that you're saying?
No, they understand the fact that you're focusing in on them.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, this is a punishment. I'm sorry. But I tried to stop them and say, hey, quit it or shush. And then they didn't. Use your voice. And then as soon as they do it, here's the other thing people don't do. I say, thank you. There's good dogs. Treat for you, treat for you, treat for you. Very good dogs. Okay. All dogs released. So, you know, deal with it. And you never get to, like, you know, when you watch a really good doggy daycare controlling the dogs, they never let it escalate. You'll see them say, Ben, don't even think about it, buddy. Yeah, cool. Yeah, don't mount. It's, you know, it's common sense. It's easy. And the voice is so rich in communicative value. You know, we could teach them the meaning of words. So we could say, sit, shush, or bed, down, shush. Okay. But if we say, hey, on your bed, no, on your bed, on your bed, the dog will work it out. On your good dog, there's a good boy. Now, down, down. There's a good dog. And I don't know why the voice has been displaced. It's a shame. Because,
so if your dogs are fighting, that could probably come in handy too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Send them to their beds.
Yeah, as Kelly says, convince them there's a bigger argument here than the two of you fighting. Don't engender my wrath. And she doesn't do anything nasty. She just gives them a look and says, now quit it. And they quit it. So it's something it's gone from dog training as really nice praise. It's been replaced by food treats. No, a food treat was meant to augment it. Praise, reward, not replace praise. Praise is analog. It's beautiful. You know, you can say, thank you. Yeah. Good dog. Good dog. Good dog.
So it looks like some people haven't received their emails yet. We are, we got our tech guys working on it, working out the glitches. This is, I guess, part of the early access, the early access experience. I should also note that we are down to 5 spots remaining if you want to get the signed copy of the book. So don't delay if you're thinking about it. Remember, we've got a money back guarantee, so you can give it a shot, take a look. And if you're not satisfied, just let us know, and we'll get you all sorted out.
Yes, I much prefer stuffables because then I can put in a high-quality diet. Bully sticks, some dogs have problem with them, and they get terrible flatulence. You've got to distinguish between a chew toy and an edible. A chew toy is something that is not meant to be consumed. It's non-consumable, and it's non-destructible. And that's why I like rubber, because if you don't notice it's got a crack in it and the dog eats a bit, it will generally pass through. If it's nylon, it won't. And so, yeah, I will occasionally give my dog a rawhide or all the other twizzle sticks and all that stuff. But it's a rarity. I much prefer like an antler or a hoof.
Oh, that's good. And they said, what do you think of the antlers?
Oh, antlers, I love it. It's like buying a gold brick.
Why is that?
It's expensive, Jeremy. You know, it's like buying a bag of Ziwi Peak, you know, but it lasts forever. And cow hooves are the
also
same.
Kind of weaponizes your dog.
Zuzu.
Running around with their pointy antlers swinging.
Zuzu always picks them up at the sword end. So she's got these antlers out the front of her mouth, kind of like Mad Max or something as she goes running around the house. Yeah.
Oh, hello, Minnie, the 10-week-old Jack Russell from Blue Cross. It's watching and she's so keen to learn.
Oh, Minnie, yeah. That's good.
All right. Any other questions out there? Antlers are expensive. It's true.
Fiona will have one.
Oh, yeah. Do you know where the Australia seminar will be?
I haven't decided yet. It'll be in November 2018. I would imagine Perth and Melbourne. Because we always have loads of people in Perth and Melbourne.
All right.
Sydney, we don't do so well. Brisbane, less so, because these will be the only seminar I'm giving, you know, the whole year. We want it to be a big festive occasion.
So Lisa had a question. I'm not sure I totally follow. And Any special tips for using Kongs with puppies in the heat of destructive chewing during teething? No special tips?
No.
Just give them the stuffed chew toy. Fill it with food.
Well, freeze it would help with the
teething.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. My 9-month-old daughter is. We're constantly giving her frozen things to gnaw on.
Yeah, but I don't really. To me, freezing, giving the dog something that's frozen, it helps. But what if we weren't there? They'd have to put up with teething like I did as a kid. Mm-hmm. It was kind of uncomfortable. No one gave me a frozen rag. I got through it.
Yeah. All right. To recap, so Dunbar's dog training masterclass. We got modules on barking, not coming when called, reactivity, jumping up, on-leash walking, but that's not all. There's the audio series, with I think 13 episodes.
The puppy training.
The puppy training course.
It's good.
And the Dr. Dunbar's Good Little Dog book. So it's a pretty great package altogether. And right, the masterclass alone is probably is very comprehensive. It's got probably what you need for the problems that you are facing with your dog. So
we need to work out how long it is, though.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
All right. Any other dog trainers you like or books from a bygone era?
Yes.
Bygone age.
Strangely enough, I've been on writing hideaways lately, and I took down 2 books to read, both by Leon Whitney. And the first was The Truth About Dogs, published in 1959, and then Dog Psychology, The Basis of Training. Whitney was a coonhound breeder, and he actually was the thin thread of intelligent training through the early part of the 20th century. That we used to do all this stuff off leash, in like the 1800s, then it stopped, bam. Conrad Most, on leash, jerk, military dog training, which lasted about 60 years, but some people were still doing it. And Whitney was my hero. Because he was a good friend of my mentor, Dr. Beach. And that's why, of course, the dog breeder got connected with psychology. And more other people, Roy Hunter. I mean, what an unheralded dog trainer. This is the man who invented nosework, invented canine games, fun and games dog training, and invented agility.
Wow.
And these are things now that there's so few of us know.
Right, and people don't know that name.
I have his books going back to way before agility was even given its name, and the equipment was confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And so Roy Hunter, they're Spiral Brown books. They're self-published somewhere in the States. I can't remember now, but you can get them at Dogwise, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
More contemporary, I love Patricia McConnell. I love Suzanne Clothier. Just the way they write is so different.
Mm-hmm.
Not the sort of what we're talking about, practical, nitty-gritty, how-to, stepwise stuff, but just really nice insight into dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I have hundreds of books downstairs, my favorites. I shouldn't have mentioned names. Now people are going to be mad. Why didn't you mention me? I've written a book.
And I want to remind you guys that this is a special price. This is an extra special price because it's the early access. So it's only going to be available till Sunday. And
see you later, Jonathan.
And if you want the book, you really got to sign up quick because we got to be down to just a few at this point. Let's see.
And there's no more questions. Any more questions? Come on, last chance.
I know there's a few of you out there still. Looks like over 100. And this is a rare opportunity to get a question answered by
Bye-bye, Abby.
Dr. Dunbar.
He's waiting for a question. Haven't got a question. You asked me
I have a question,
Jamie. What? That's good. You were reading my mind, weren't you?
What is your favorite
sushi?
Sushi.
What do we get? Oh, uni.
Uni?
Yeah, uni, ikura, ika.
Uni tastes like a sweaty gym sock.
No, it does not. It can do.
Oh, we got
if
a
it's
question.
little old. Yeah.
What kind of games could be included in exercise classes for dog and owner? Are you thinking about like physical exercise, Sean?
Oh, everything. Mental, physical. I mean, what I do is first I come up with an exercise, then I turn it into a game. So, for example, we talked about recalls. Come and sit. Let's turn it into a go-to and a round robin go-to. So a group of you, big circle, spread out in the park or in your house, one upstairs, one downstairs, one in the kitchen. And you say, Rover, go to Jamie. Then Jamie hears that. And of course, now we all talking in our phones anyway. And Jamie says, Rover, come here. And so the dog learns, aha, when anybody says, go to Jamie, always Jamie calls. So the dog is learning, go to the name of a person. The dog is learning the name of people. That's a great exercise. And when you walk the dogs, like you go for a walk in the hills, if you stand, like with Zuzu, you know, Kelly and I used to walk 50 yards apart, and we don't walk more than half a mile. And Zuzu is going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth just to get a little bit of energy out of her.
Zuzu has a lot of energy.
So yeah, think of the exercise, then think, how can we make this a game? Sit, stay, who has the longest? All dogs in a line. When they break, they're out. You're left with one dog, you know?
Yeah.
So games.
What do you think about collars and harnesses, using them together or separately?
I hate them all. I use a collar.
Hate seems a little strong.
Well,
you don't think they're necessary?
I don't think they're necessary because they slow down training. They turn training into a two-step process. They cover up the problem that your dog doesn't want to walk by your side. He wants to move away from you and pull.
So you prefer a training solution over a equipment solution?
Yes. Well, and because if someone left that front door open and Zuzu goes, what use does a collar or a leash? I want people to have, and it just takes one house guest, leaves the door open for a second, and you have a big problem that's a safety issue. So I use a collar. I get a very fancy collar from Parco collars in Berkeley. I'm shamelessly supporting them. And they're beautiful collars to hang the dog's tags on. That's the purpose of it, and to look nice. And to connect the leash up if we're in an area where it's unsafe or illegal for the dog to be off leash. Otherwise, I don't use collars, halters, or harnesses in training. I just... It deflects from training. It puts training on hold. Yeah, there's a difference between a training tool and a management tool. And I like using training tools and phasing them out.
All right. What about a puppy that's biting on a leash? How do you get them to stop that?
Bad news. Very bad news, because one bite on the leash and you've compromised its safety, and the puppy now lunges and snap, the leash is broken. So I would definitely get the dog to carry something now when walking on leash that I would say, take your toy, like a tug toy or a Kong or a tennis ball. And if the dog drops it, I'd just pick him up, say, right, home. And then I'd give him 5 minutes to think about it. Then I'd walk him again.
So you need to teach off and take it, right?
Off and take it, yeah. So and
then I guess you can always tell your dog off when they're chewing on their leash.
And Phoenix had this horrible problem of finding and eating cat poop on the walks. And the way I solved that was I found a great big log, this wide and this wide and this long, for her to carry. It took 3 walks. I said, Feeny, take your log with some training first, you know, off, take it, thank you, off, take it, thank you. And with the thank you, you give treats to build up the token system of what they're holding. So we go on the first walk. She drops it at the end of the driveway. I said, all right, walk over inside. And she looks at me like, what happened there? The next time we got pretty much up to Lois's. Third time we got all the way around the block. Carry the log, walk continues. Drop the log, walk stops. But it is very, very dangerous when they're biting on the leash, because it's like a dog that bites through the seatbelts in your car.
Right.
You don't know now its strength.
What do you do about dogs that hump? And would you say it's usually a product of overexcitement, or can it be something else?
Well, yeah, it's called normal
sexual drive
and
libido.
lust. Libido, yeah, so it's totally normal.
So what do you do about it?
Well, it depends how well trained the dog is. If he's not that well trained, I say, hey, off, sit. So I tell them off, but they may have only been trained off with objects.
Mm-hmm.
And this bitch is a female dog, is too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I say sit. It's another use of sit. I think in this little book, you'll find, here we go, where is it? A list of 10 things a dog can't do when sitting. Number 7, mount other dogs or be mounted by other dogs.
And Kate, they also can't chase bikes while you're on a walk.
Oh, look at them. Yeah, look, run off in the park, fence fight, scrap. If in doubt, say sit. But what I say with Dune used to crack me up because he was a lover, man. He always wanted to mount. His little ears would perk first. And I would say to the owner, he's thinking of mounting. Is that okay for you or your dog? Mm-hmm. And if either the owner or the dog were upset, I would say, Dune, don't think about it. And he'd go, whoa. And the ears would go flat and he would turn away.
Oh, you killjoy.
No, I mean, there's some things that happen and our brains turn to mush. Mm-hmm. Like if a dog's mounting, if a dog's fighting, if a dog is barking,
mm-hmm.
deal with it. Use your voice. Mm-hmm. Shush.
Mm-hmm.
And if the dog goes woof, which is the equivalent to flipping you off, I said, shush, one more bark, no more food for the rest of your life. Yeah. And the dog will actually understand the tone. Hasn't got a clue what I'm saying.
Right.
But they know this.
Right.
And I don't want, obviously, to frighten the dog or hurt it.
Or starve it.
Yeah, but I've trained the dog to woof and shush. And
yeah.
I said shush and the dog went woof. Sorry, unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said sit and the dog said no.
So you got to follow up. Let them know.
And the interesting thing is you don't have to follow up in a nasty way. You just have to follow up.
Mm-hmm.
This is the interesting thing we found. As long as you follow up and the dog eventually does it, right. And then when it does it, you say, thank you. Now we'll do that again until you do it following a single command. Then you get the reliability.
Right. Kind of like when your mom follows up. She doesn't have to be nasty about it. She can just be persistent.
Sweet voice.
And it's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Fork.
Fine. Please.
Now you continue now to eat with your knife and the plate disappears. No food. Solves that problem.
What do you think about clickers? Do you ever use clickers in combination with your methods?
Yeah, more pertinently, what I think about shaping. Some behaviors, you have to shape them. It is the training technique of choice for training in really complicated behaviors or when you're finessing behaviors. You want the dog to sit perfectly straight with his ears up and the tail in this position. So shaping is a great, one of the 5 great reward-based training techniques. Mm-hmm. However, it's pretty time consuming. And of course, it's the most complicated. It requires the biggest skill set.
So it's not the easiest.
So it's number 4 on my list.
Mm-hmm.
I would go with auto shaping first, then all and none reward training, then lure reward training. We're off and running. We're really working now very quickly. Shaping, and then as a last resort, hands-on physical prompting. Mm-hmm. But by and large, I do hands-off training because otherwise it turns into manhandling and bullying, and that's not so good.
Mm-hmm. A follow-up question about when you were, I think, talking about dogs that are fighting, and you say you just got to deal with it and use your voice. And I think maybe for a lot of people that isn't detailed or clear enough. Like, how do you think you can make that simpler for people who don't know what you're,
okay, first we have to know whether the dogs are dangerous or not. Mm-hmm. So has the dog ever inflicted harm on another dog? If so, this is a serious problem, and it's not the sort of thing I can cavalierly discuss now. Mm-hmm. But essentially, that dog, I wouldn't trust him alone with other dogs again. So you've got to make a big decision with this dog. He shouldn't be off leash in a dog park. And if you have multiple dogs at home, there's an element of risk here. However, 99.9% of times, dog fighting is not dangerous because they fight and no damage is done. That's just a fact when you look at the numbers. So when they fight, are you happy about this or not? If not, then stop it. Now, with a trained dog, you can say, dogs down. Mm-hmm. End of problem. My question is, does your dog know what down means?
Right. Or go to your bed or sit. Or...
And the honest answer to that is, well, he knows it in the kitchen if I have a food bowl. Well, he has to know it that down means down wherever you are, whatever's going on, whatever the distraction, whatever's happening to me. Sit means sit, down means down. That is the holy grail in dog training. But if your dog is not trained, I would do something that would stop the dog. I won't do it here, but I would bang this tabletop, or I would rattle the furniture. And I'd rather do that than you put your hands or feet in, because all too often I've seen dog fighting where they don't harm each other turning into dog biting where they puncture the skin because the owner puts their hand in. So no, create noise, go to the wall, bang on the wall, rattle a chair, or very effective, just sit down and cry. And I remember when we started the dog park in Berkeley, which was the very first dog park in the world, this was the question: what do we do if dogs fight? And what we did was, and then we were a very small connected group, we would all run up to the fighting dogs and form a tight-necked circle, and we'd link arms. So other dogs couldn't get in. And then we would say, dogs sit, dogs sit, dogs sit. And a lot of these dogs didn't even know what sit means, but they would all go, oh my God, what's going on? And the owners would come in, take their dogs out of the circle, sit, and it was over. So do something that's effective. And there is an tremendous power in a group reprimand. In fact, we use it with
and this information. I just want to point out, this is in the reactivity module. Talking about how to deal with reactivity and aggression issues, and in much more detail, and with demonstrations. So,
I find one thing that helps is if you can't think what to do. So many people are thinking, what do we do to the dog? Just step back and let the dog know how you feel. And this is really good because you're not starting the sentence with "you bad dog." You're saying, I feel so upset by this. It's really getting me down when I think of the money I've put into buying modules to solve this problem, and you still keep doing this. I'm so upset. You see, I said you then. See how easy it is? So you sit down and say, I am upset. I'm infuriated, and cry. And that's how I solved it, when I had the running off problem with Omaha when we were in competitive obedience. Embarrassing. It ruined my street cred. I'm in the ring and the dog just takes off 5 rings away.
I bet crying was good for your street cred.
Well, I didn't do it then. It was my best moment in the ring. I said to the judge, what should I do? And I said, should I call the dog? He said, will it come? I said, Omaha sit. So 5 rings away, he sits, because that's the thing I really practice. So he sits and pays attention. I tell him to come.
If dogs were fighting, would you ever consider pulling their hind legs?
I would only touch them if I knew both dogs. No, I would get something between the dogs, whether it's a large book or a chair.
Right.
But I would say, don't think of doing stuff to the dog. Think of creating enormous energy here.
To pull them away.
The dogs are fighting, and it's pretty damn scary, and it's high level there. I'm going to create a disturbance now, like an earthquake going on. Noise, shouting, everything, banging furniture. Very, very dangerous to put your hands in there and touch any part of the dog. And it usually turns out nasty too. You're grabbing. And heaven forbid you hurt the dog, and now he swings around and nails you. To me, we have dog-dog aggression, and we have dog-human aggression. Way off the screen. So I'd strongly recommend, no, use your voice. If that doesn't work, create a disturbance. Dogs are very impressed by furniture. Rattling a chair gets an immediate reaction, as does just making weird noises. Like, it's totally weird. It's like this. And
it distracted me.
Well, I went to a stress management course once with animal control years and years ago, And this is way down south. And one of the animal control officers says to this young psychologist, she was about 25 years old, says, well, what I want to know is when I go to give a ticket and I'm out in the bayou and someone puts a shotgun in my belly, how do I manage my stress? And she went, ah! Ah! And she ran off the stage. And everyone in the audience is like, what happened? And then she said, that's what I would do. But I'd be running to my car. My car is now locked. I'm calling the police and you're going to jail. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be, you don't want to get in the dog's face. The energy needs to be here. Okay. And then she said another way to deal with the stress management is like you're in a bar and someone's trying to pick a fight with you. What can you do? You can't be obsequious. You'll get beaten up. Mm-hmm. And you can't say, you're trying to pick a fight with me when the guy has biceps bigger than your waist, And so what you go is say, oh, yeah. Oh, no, man. Damn. Oh, and you run out.
I'm late for my webinar.
Yeah, I'm late for my webinar.
Dr. Ian Dunbar is speaking.
A limited time to buy the package.
I've only got minutes remaining.
And people are just left stunned. And so this is how I deal with the dog. I want to stun the dog, but at a distance, moving away from him. I do not want people to come in and zooming in on the dog like this. It's just not good. Mm-hmm. You're going to have an accident one of these days.
I did think of a question. I feel like we had to skip over one or two little stories because we're running a little close on time. But can you tell me about any barking issues you've had within Manhattan, perhaps?
Yep. That was a good case. It was a good friend of mine, local. We connected, but she found out I was a doggy specialist and she wanted me to talk to the Yorkie chat group. And I found out she's a very famous author, and we were both starstruck when we met. Anyway, she had a Yorkie that barked all the time. And so we taught the dog to speak on cue, 1, 2, 3, 4, Rover woof, number 2, an accomplice, knocks on the door, number 3, the dog barks, number 4, you praise, and we do that. So now we can teach shush when we want to. Mm-hmm. Number 1, shush. Number 2, hold food in front of its nose. As soon as the dog sniffs, he stops barking. So anyway, so I taught her this and then said, and the secret is, and here's the big secret that you'll find actually in when we didn't mention today, but why our methods are so quick. We troubleshoot it. So now you've got to go woof, shush, woof, shush, woof, shush. On and off, on and off, on and off by the front door. Now with people coming in, but the same people, they come in and you practice. Anyway, so she got this front door greetings down, and then I went to see them in Manhattan. And I ring the doorbell, ding dong, like this. And then I hear step, step. Thank you, dogs. Shush. But it's a man's voice. Anyway, I open the door and it's her husband. She not only had trained the dogs, she then had trained her husband to work the dogs that she had previously
She's ready
trained.
to make her own masterclass.
Yep, you're so right.
You can train a husband.
And, it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So I think we've probably got about 5 or 10 more minutes. Just want to remind you, this special price, very limited time. So if you are interested, if you're on the fence, now is the time to act, because price will not remain this low for very long. I did have one other story in mind, although I'm checking out. Let's see if there's any other pressing questions.
I don't understand. There we go.
Thank you for. They're asking about back end and stuff that Ede and Mike will have to help with. Noise phobias. Any suggestions for dogs with noise phobias? That's a hard one, right?
I can't do it really quick. It's going to take a long, long time, but you're going to have to desensitize it.
You can start with classical conditioning, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The total classical conditioning with presenting the stimulus way under threshold. Or you can go to a place that's noisy. Let's say there's a street fair, but you obviously don't take the dog there. You go within 200 yards of it and you start feeding the dog. You walk closer and then farther away.
Feeding the dog.
Closer, farther away. Closer, farther away. Yeah, you don't keep going closer, 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 but you approach, you come back, you approach, you come back, hand feeding the dog. So if you do have a noise that's way above threshold, you can use that technique, but it's certainly got to be done. If he's afraid of fireworks or thunder or things like that. There was another question there, you know, what if the dog's so excited or over the top that he just turns deaf? Yeah, this is what training's about, okay? And there's two situations to train a dog: the best possible training scenario, the worst possible. Well, when the dog is so excited he's over the top, that's the worst. So you want to pre-train what's the best. You and the dog in the kitchen. That's where training starts. Does he sit there? Can he stay there? Will he come when called there? You know, will he look at you? Then you move to the living room. We do it bit by bit. Okay, remember when I was talking about how we first expand the area, then the yard, then another yard, a friend's yard, then we bring in the distractions, now a person, several people, now another dog, and so on. Or you can train in the worst possible training scenario, like the Doberman in the park. It was stupid to train the dog like that, but that's the way I am. I'm going to meet the beast, confront this problem, and solve it. And because I've done it many times, I just know it's a matter of time before the dog eventually listens to me. Then training begins, which means the next time I come to the park, he's likely to listen to me earlier. Until now, there's no transition from on-leash outside of the park to off-leash in the park. So we have to start training somewhere. And the knee-jerk reaction is, oh no, he always does it then. Then do it more there, reinforce him heavily, now make the area a little bigger or increase the distraction slightly.
Right.
And so on. So
Baby
on.
steps.
Yeah. And phase out the food. So once he's doing, you know, one step come sits, how many one step come sits can you do for one treat?
Yeah.
First 2, then 3, then 5, then 10, then 20. So that's 40 behaviors for one treat.
All right, that's something we didn't talk about today in the webinar, but it's certainly in the master classes.
It's huge. The food, overuse of food is destroying training. We're giving too much food. It's in our hands too long, so we end up bribing, and we're rewarding too many times. So we're rewarding so many below average responses that we're going nowhere.
It's interesting. It seems like people are using too much food, too many rewards in kind of obedience training, and then they're not using enough in classical conditioning.
You've got it,
right?
Jamie. That's a very astute comment. You're absolutely right.
Because in classical conditioning, you could do 200 food treats. Just boom, boom, boom. Just keep going, right?
I tell veterinarians, puppy's first visit, over 200 treats. I said, yes, 200. So you will do this. And furthermore, you will not touch the puppy until you've done this. Classical conditioning comes first, and then you do your exam. That's only going to take 4 minutes and 25 seconds anyway. You know, I tell them, my grandfather, to touch an animal is an earned privilege. It's not a right. If you just go and grab that puppy, you're going to find 3 years hence, you can't touch that dog in the clinic now. And this is, you know, the things we want to change, our new programs that we'll be releasing soon.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
Before we sign off. From Lisa. Lisa, you get our last question.
Hey, Lisa.
She's guessing she already knows the answer, but would you recommend teaching an emergency recall?
I generally teach emergency sits, and the reason is to teach an emergency recall is a lot harder in an emergency because you're going to end up saying, Rover, come here! And shouting, you have to have first taught the dog that volume and tone simply mean urgency, not that you're mad at them. So you have to do that first, and because it's very easy to do, you gradually increase your volume with the command as you increase the treats. So the dog learns. The louder they give the command, the more number of treats I get when I do it. Sit. If you shout, then it naturally helps you because it's an inhibitive command. And if you just went up to the dog and said something he didn't understand, like, siéntate, he'd probably go, whoa. So he's already stationary. We're halfway there. Now we've got to get him into the position.
But if you yell some gibberish, he's not going to necessarily come.
I teach the dog as the one command that's the must-do command is the super sit, anytime, anywhere, any distance. And then we have options. And 99% of the time, I say, Zuzu, sit. Good girl, Zuzu. Go on. I release her. So now the walk and the sniffing becomes the reward for the prompt distance sit. Or I could say, sit, stay. I want to check out the environment. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking this environment's getting tricky. We've got people on horseback coming towards us, and a bunch of children. Mm-hmm. So I would then say, Rover, come. Now, the recall would then work because the dog is sitting and focused on you. We've turned it from a real life recall to an old obedience drill. Mm-hmm. You know the dog's in a sit-stay 35 feet away when you say, come. Occasionally, I would go, Rover, sit, and I'm running towards them as they sit because I'm going to take them by the collar, put them on leash, and everyone will see my dog was on leash and sitting. Mm-hmm. That means the environment's crumbling quickly. Mm-hmm. A whole busload of children have got out and running towards the beach, as happened with Omaha once in Carmel.
Armed with water pistols. And
so I much prefer an emergency sit or an emergency down compared to an emergency recall.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know I said that was the last question, but Sarah did ask if we have training programs for vets, and we do. We have a couple. We have a program, the Serious Veterinary Behavior Program.
Yeah,
if you look online, and that one's a free one for vets. It's mostly text based, and then there's a seminar, a video seminar,
the race course, so they can get credit.
Practical behavior information,
bad behavior, and the veterinary practitioner. I think the title was.
I don't think so. Pretty sure it's practical behavior information for veterinary practitioners. Oh, yeah. That's the new one. That's race approved.
Okay.
Anyways,
guys,
we had so much fun with you.
It's been fun.
Now remember, this is your last chance to get this price. The master class will be there, but the price will go up. Yeah. All right, bye guys.
See you. Cheers. Oh God.